Thanks. See what I mean? There it was. Now it's not.
We're just gonna switch it.
Finally. All right. Okay, you guys can see that okay, I take it? Let me see if I got a full screen. Oh, that's even better. Okay, so light looks okay for you guys? You're seeing everything, hearing everything okay?
Yes, it looks okay.
Yeah.
All right. This is the rotary pump that you're going to work with. We have inlet and outlet, outlet and inlet. Let's see. I picked kind of a bad one here. You can't see that real well, but here's some arrows. And that little plate says inlet and outlet. And that little plate tells you which one is the inlet and which one is the outlet, depending upon which way this rotates. Which way does it rotate? Well, it'll rotate either which way. So if I'm rotating it this way, is that clockwise or counterclockwise?
Counterclockwise.
All right, remember, the rotation of any component is when viewed from the drive end. So don't look at it here where it says like it's going that way around and say, oh, okay, that's clockwise. So I'm turning it the way the arrow goes right now. Is it clockwise?
Hey, Kevin.
Yeah.
On Zoom, there's like with the camera stuff, there's a mirror effect on. It's a weird setting. So.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a mirror.
Yeah,
it's
there's a
mirror
lag.
image.
Let me think.
And then it's also different when we look at it from your notes, like where you view your notes, and then from like your actual webcam. It's like
Okay.
different views.
How's that look? So I turned up. Now it's just
That's
weird
better.
for me. Left is right,
Looks the
right is
same,
left.
just on the opposite
Okay,
side.
well, maybe I'll just, I don't know, I can do it this way or this way. I won't talk clockwise, counterclockwise then. I will just tell you that, be careful, because like to me, it's going around. Yikes. This is just wonderful today. Why is it doing that?
It's Monday.
I know. Well, it's not what it wants to be.
There is a pretty big delay when you move your hands and stuff on the actual.
I think it's your internet, Steve.
Yeah, how would you know, Steve? How would you know if I just moved my hand? All right, let's get back to this. I will make it simple then. The direction of rotation is when viewed from the drive end. Clockwise is clockwise, counterclockwise is counterclockwise. Never look at this plate and try and determine the drive end from this plate. You can figure out which way it rotates, but this is not, don't look at this end. Got it? Hopefully you got that. Okay. So on the top, here's a lock nut. And that lock nut allows me to rotate the screw. This would be to increase pressure, screw down, unscrew to have less pressure. All right, we can take it apart. And I just simply grabbed stuff from the cabinet and went. So hopefully this is a good one and it's not all messed up inside. There's a hole right here. What do you suppose that hole is for?
Air bleed.
Deck pressure.
Bypass.
Ooh, I heard one right answer. Bypass would be no. What else? Mark had the right answer.
Deck pressure, upper deck pressure.
Yep, that is, so this is a compensated fuel pump. All right, so I'm gonna pull that out. Got a spring. That's the spring pushing down on the diaphragm. Lift up the diaphragm, pull that out of the way. And inside here is the little cup. We'll go through that. This should come apart. Don't look. Any tool's the right tool. Plate off. Someone with the texting clicks, Heath, what does that mean?
Oh, I just heard a bunch going on earlier.
Part. There's not a, yeah, this one, let's see if I can get it apart. These little O-rings right here are really delicate. There we go. And a lot of this you have to press apart, and I don't have a press, so I'm just gonna kind of leave it maybe like this for now. We can talk about how it works. So right now, the pump could rotate clockwise or counterclockwise because this is going to dictate which way is the discharge and which way is not the discharge. Let me see if I can get this thing off here. This is the discharge end, and you'll figure that out in a little bit because here's a little tiny lightweight spring and a little plunger. So, all right, so let's talk about what we got. A couple things. One, we talked about this hole right here, and that in fact goes to the upper deck pressure. This is the screw. Get over here. This is the screw and the adjustment that is going to go to the spring, and that spring is going to press down on the plunger apparatus. All right, the funny thing about this is it's a left-hand thread. If I screw it in, it comes apart. So I'm screwing it to the right, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, but it went backwards. So the fun part about that is I say, well, it's backwards thread. So if I want to increase pressure, what do?
Tighten it.
And this is where you could chime in.
Going to counterclockwise.
So to increase pressure, I unscrew it.
Yes.
Nope, I want you to think this one through. I'm going to screw it to the right. I'm turning it down. And as I turn it down, is it going to put more or less pressure on the spring?
Less.
More. It's getting further away from me. So
Confusing because the video's mirrored. Keeps messing me up.
is it? Well, then it keeps going
Back to
away,
your
which is a
notepad.
lot of fun
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah, it said you said you were going right, but it looked like it was going left.
Oh, okay.
And on my end, it's showing your notepad.
Well, I have no idea exactly why I keep losing the video. I'm just gonna leave it like that. Okay. Yeah, the rights and the lefts are really screwing with you guys. Anyway, this is, I'll just do my best then. This is backwards thread. Doesn't matter that it's backwards. Let me just make it simple. Doesn't matter that it's backwards. It goes inside of here. And when I screw this thing down, righty-tighty, and I'm screwing it to the right, it increases pressure. Why? Because it moves this thing down the shaft and puts more pressure down on the spring that is inside of here. That spring is putting more pressure. Are you kidding me? You guys keep losing the video, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, it says it's pinned. I did nothing. I did not touch anything. Are you guys messing with it?
No.
Let me try something here. Share. Let's move my screen over. Oh, that didn't work at all.
You don't get paid enough to do this.
You can see it on
Um,
your actual video feed. Like, if we were just looking at you talk, we could see it.
You can see it right now. Do you see a full screen right now?
I can see a full
If you
screen.
click,
I
if you
can
click on the
pin that.
dots and pin it, I can see it full screen.
Right
Yeah.
now, we're just getting the.
I can see full screen.
Oh, if you see a full screen, maybe I shouldn't worry about it. I can't.
Well,
So-
You need it. Whoever can't see him needs to pin you and then make it full screen.
Okay. Pin it, make it full screen. Got it? All right, because I can see a full screen on one of my thing. And it might have something to do with my little camera over here. I'm gonna have to unplug that other camera. All right, so let's try and see if we can run through this thing. See, like I just lost it again. Hopefully you guys don't. I'm trying to plug in this. There we go. Maybe that has something to do with it. I've got a second camera set up for me that I was going to do something, but we'll see if that had something to do with it. Okay, so let's say this is going around this way, whichever way that is, going this way. And so if you can look inside there, you should be able to see the little veins going around. And no. Okay. So the veins are going around. So that means that the veins are going down and around. Well, that's not really the way I want it to go. I'm going to try something here because, you know, everything is working so wonderful. Why not just add complexity to this? And this should change cameras in just a second. There we go. All right. I'm using a borescope camera. There's my little plant. There's my finger. And let's see if I can get this going the right way. So you guys are right side up. All right. So there we go. It's right side up. So there's little veins. Do this all at once. All right. So now you can see them going around. And they want to go, you want the inlet side to go up. Like there's a little, sorry. Maybe this isn't the best idea. I don't know, is that helping? So there's the veins going around. And we want them to go up. I'm going to switch back to my other camera. It'll come on in a sec. Come on, camera. There we go. All right, I'm gonna have to try and make this a little more simplistic than where we're going right here. Okay, so the fuel is gonna come in through one side. Now, whatever side I make it, I have to put this on the correct way. So if I put it on this way, this is the exhaust. These two have to line up. That's the outlet. If I'm putting it on this way, this is the inlet. So fuel comes in the inlet. And remember, we're looking for two things. One, we have to have a bypass in case this isn't running. And two, we have to have a pressure regulator. So the way the bypass works on this is the bypass right here. It's a little difficult to see inside of here. But what happens is the fuel comes inside of here. So if we're running the boost pump, fuel comes through here, up here, inside of here on this side of the cavity, goes, this little guy's in here, and it blocks it off. So you can see, if I held it just right, you can see through here. So you know the fuel's coming up, through, and around, across the top, and then it's going to push this little plunger that I just pushed in there. This little plunger right here, it's very lightweight spring, there's nothing to it. And it's just barely holding it in place. And so it's gonna push that out of the way and let fuel come right out through here and down the outlet side and out. So that's the bypass. Now, once the pump starts turning, and remember, when does the bypass close? Whenever the pressure from this pump is more than the boost pump, then it is going to put pressure on this from the backside, close it, and now it's running in normal mode. And so what's happening here then is as we start pumping, and it's hard to see some of these passages, but as the pump exceeds the preset pressure, it lifts this little piece off its seat and allows fuel to bypass around. So unfortunately, there's so many little passages in here, I probably can't show you, but it's just probably something better that you guys get to experiment now that I'm trying to do this. And the camera keeps switching on me. It's like every 15 seconds, I lose my feed over here. So I'm just going to set that aside.
How would you know if the fuel was bypassing? Is there like a something that would let you know?
Nope, absolutely nothing. You would have no idea. Now there is a cutaway that might be of some help. So again, we know that this right here is that inlet or outlet?
Inlet.
Outlet.
Outlet. This is the outlet. Now the nice thing is, I never noticed this before. This one right here says this end of valve must be on discharge side of pump. So that one's really nice. It helps. This actually says it too. You just can't read it. So this is discharge. So all I have to do, if my pump is running one way and I'm like, well, I want it to run the other way, all I have to do is take this off and rotate it. And so if the pump's running backwards, just move this around. That's all you got to do, because you can't change the direction of the engine.
It's pretty universal in that aspect.
Absolutely. So is it a right hand or left hand pump? Well, it just depends on which way you have this facing. So, all right. All right, so again, this is the discharge side. So you want the vanes to go up. So it's going to grab fuel and push it up this way. If it's not running, it's going to come up through here. If I can do this with the cutaway. A little weird on the cutaway. Up through here, we're missing some passages, but it's going to come around the passages, push this little piece back here aside and let it come down and around. I can't really show you that. When the pump is bypassing, or when it's running normal and not bypassing, it's going to look like this. But once it's running, and I should say bypassing, and the pressure regulator starts working, this right here lifts up and it creates a passage right here for fuel to go through and return to the inlet side of the pump. So it's going to come on the back side through here, inlet side of the pump. Now the thing to think about with this is, if it's bypassing a little, then this is going to open a little. If it's bypassing a lot, it's going to open a lot, and it takes more pressure to actually lift it up at that point. Also, the air coming in through here, the upper deck pressure pushes down on the diaphragm, which assists the spring in pushing it down. So I'm just going to move that aside for now, because that's about all I can show you. And my camera is kind of making me crazy. So given that didn't work out as well as I'd hoped, I'm going to change this to screen 2. Share screen 2. Okay, you should be looking at the notepad. You guys looking at the notepad?
Yep.
Yep.
I see it.
All right. Well, let's just hope that the notepad stays, because if it doesn't, it's going to be for a long afternoon. All right, so we've talked about pumps and we've talked about carburetors, and we are ready to start talking about pressure carbs. That's going to be exciting. All right. So pressure carburetors are a whole different animal. Now it's good that we know how carburetors work, and we can take the concepts that we've learned with carburetors and we can apply that to pressure carburetors. So let's talk about what they are and what's different about them, and then we can go from there and talk more about how they work. First, I'm going to turn off this insanely bright light. There we go. Insanely bright light is now off. Okay, so what do we know? We know we still know about mixtures. We learned all about mixtures. What is stoichiometric? What is best power? If it's too rich, it won't run. If it's too lean, it won't run. We know we need stuff rich at wider open throttles. We've learned that with carburetors, they're prone to icing. That, what other kind of stuff you guys think about here? We know that they don't work upside down. They don't work in zero gravity. And they're prone to icing. So if we take a look at all this stuff and think about it, the next evolution in carburetors became pressure carburetors. And so we can start here. Let's see. Start at the top. And pressure carburetors. Pressure carburetors. Well, they've got some advantages. As we talked about, one, they're less prone to ice. Less prone to ice. Especially throttle ice, since the discharge nozzle is after the venturi. I should write that. So especially throttle ice, because the discharge nozzle is after the venturi. Where was the discharge nozzle in the carburetors, float carburetors?
In the venturi.
In the venturi. So right in the venturi, we have what we call refrigeration ice, because of latent heat evaporation. The fuel needed to absorb heat to evaporate, so the things around it got very cold. We have cold fuel then sprays up against the throttle body, or the throttle valve, I should say, the throttle valve, and it makes that very cold. And that would also aid evaporation, and you get ice forming around that throttle valve. So now with the carburetor, because the discharge nozzle is now after the venturi and throttle. So after the venturi, so we're gonna be looking at something and things are gonna be in different places now. Gravity and inertia. I'm gonna say, I didn't have this before, so I should probably, and even attitude, like upside down, have little effect. So this would be a great carburetor to have on something that was aerobatic, or they used them during World War II. So fuel is automatically metered at all engine speeds and loads. Automatically metered at all engine speeds and load. Would you say that's true for a float carburetor?
No, I don't think so.
What's your thought?
Well, yeah, I think, yeah, because the idle circuit and the non-idle circuit both have main metering jets.
Yeah. So I don't know. C seems a little not true. I mean, if an advantage over a carburetor. I have some of this stuff I get out of a book and I write it and then I look at it and go, I don't kind of agree with that. I think that was the whole point of a regular carburetor. It automatically metered fuel at all engine speeds and loads. I could add to that though, and make this more of a true statement. It automatically, and I should say it more appropriately measures the air, because if you remember the float carburetors measured volume, and you really need it to be measured more on weight. I think this does a little bit better job of weight.
So this is more accurate?
Yep. Okay. Okay, so atomizing fuel under pressure results in a smoother engine. With a pressure carburetor, thus the name, you have to have it under pressure at all times. So unlike a float carburetor, you don't need pressure. You go into the float, and then really from the float chamber on, it doesn't know the difference if you have a fuel pump or not. The fuel pump just gets it to the float chamber. After that, they all work the same. So the fuel is not under pressure once it gets to the float bowl. And it's really never under much pressure if it's a high wing aircraft. So atomizing AT. And atomizing, there we go. Fuel under pressure results in a smoother engine. Smoother engine. These carburetors apparently have better economy. And because everything is under pressure, protection against vapor lock. There we go.
Almost makes you think, why would you have any other type of carburetor?
You're going to find out in a few minutes. Okay, so given a choice, if somebody said to me, hey, Kevin, because that's my name, I will give you a free Marvel MA3 SPA for your Cessna 150 or a free pressure carburetor. You can have either which one. Which one would you want? I would say, get that pressure carburetor away from me.
Curious minds want to know why.
Okay, because they are incredibly complex. They are so complex. I have one here. I'll grab one. I'll show it to you. I have a very little one I brought here.
You can lose pressure.
So here it is. There is absolutely no stinking way you're going to convince me to loosen a single screw on this thing. They are so complicated. I mean, there's levers and switches and knobs and dials and diaphragms. And so I tell you that to say you will not be taking one of these apart in lab. We have a cutaway. I don't even care that if you look at the cutaway, we're going to look at diagrams, simplified diagrams of what these things are. And when I say simplified, I have a diagram right here. I can show you what a non-simplified diagram looks like, just so you get the idea of what I'm talking about. Let's see, a non-simplified diagram. Here we go. No, I wanted this one.
That looks simple.
I know, I could do that. Well, why it chose not to, I don't know. So let me see. Maybe I got two things running at once. There we go. So let's pull this down. The simplest of things are just not even going well today. There we go.
Yeah, I'll pass.
Okay. This is a PR58. This is the very large carburetor that actually sits up on the shelf. So this thing is, I don't know, a foot tall by 10 inches wide, or no, it's about a foot by about 10 inches. So we are not going to be going through this one. So there we go. So we're going to go through more simplistic versions, and we're going to bring it down to you can understand the concept of them. There's no reason why you can't take apart an MA3, MA4 type carburetor. They're all fairly simplistic. This one, not so much. So when they kind of the way we say it out in the field, when they work fantastic. Don't mess with them. Don't touch it. Don't even look at it too much. You know, just kind of just at the corner of your eye. Don't let it know you saw it. That's kind of a joke, but and you always keep fueling them. You never let them run dry. When you let them run dry, you risk the diaphragms inside cracking. And once they crack, you have to rebuild the whole thing. And the cost to rebuild one of these things has got to be rather large. So you don't see a lot of aircraft with these, but it's not like I don't. So like even within our fleet of aircraft there at the hangar, we do have one aircraft with a pressure carb, and that's the VTail Bonanza that we have. So most of them at the point where they wanted to get more sophisticated and go with a pressure carb, they decided to go with a fuel injection system. And when we get into fuel injection systems, you're going to see that Lycoming does things very similar to a pressure carb. Continental does things completely different than anything you've ever guessed. So, all right, so better protection.
Yeah. How about if you live with fuel, but you're not running your aircraft? for a long period of time.
Well, you don't let it run dry, and you don't shut the fuel off to it. Leave the fuel on, or make sure it just keeps fuel in it.
But even if fuel sitting and
Yep.
doesn't get all, and
Well, it's gonna, but you still want the fuel in it. And
yeah.
I wouldn't want my airplane just to sit there for years on end. But you know, our VTOL Bonanza, that's the way it's treated. It sits for an entire year until the end of this class, and then I use it. We use it as our class project for us. We take the Bonanza out, we run the pressure carb, I show you how to run it, and that's the only time it gets used. But I will tell you, from the time that I started up at the beginning of the class, we use it during the last like 2-3 weeks of class. So from the first group that runs it to the last group, it starts running better and better and better. So it definitely takes a little bit of wear into it, but it's got some abuse to it that has sat so long. So I'm just going to give you some very basic principle of operation. This is just a very few points, and then we're going to go into really looking how it works. So basic principle of operation. All right, so just things to keep in mind as we start going through this. So the carburetor is going to sense mass airflow. Mass airflow. And what I mean by mass airflow, it's more of a weight of the air coming through it than it is just a basic venturi. So it senses mass airflow to regulate the fuel pressure. So we can stop right there and even look at this. So if we compare it to a float carburetor, we could say a float carburetor senses airflow to regulate the fuel to the nozzle, but this is very specific. It's going to sense airflow to regulate the fuel pressure to the metering system. Which is to say, we're going to be looking for the carburetor itself. It wants a certain parameter of fuel pressure. If it gets outside those parameters, you're gonna mess it up. So but it has a wide parameter, so like 9 to 15 psi. So as long as you're giving it its 9 to 15 psi inlet, it's going to use air pressure to then regulate the fuel pressure internal to the carburetor, set the fuel pressure, then take that fuel pressure and run it off to the metering system within the carburetor. It's not as complicated as it may sound up front, but at least I'll try not to make it that way. So the fuel, I'm having all kinds of problems. I'm having a delay while I write here, is not open to the atmosphere, like a float bowl is. Where a float bowl, we always look for the venting in it. Well, we're not going to get that this time. So we're going to look at fuel is under pressure from the tank. That's the fuel tank, all the way to the discharge nozzle. And the basic way it does this, it controls fuel to the engine by sensing two forces. And those forces, thankfully, are well named and make sense. Air metering force, which, unlike the carburetor, is 100% air. There is no fuel in the air metering force. It is all about the air. And the second one is fuel metering force, which is all about the fuel and has nothing to do with the air. So two completely different systems. You take the air On one side, and the carburetor it's actually an analog computer actually, and it's figuring out the air and how much is coming through and doing its thing. And then it's going to come over here into the fuel, how much it's doing. And then through a series of connections, it's going to then control it and then send it off to the metering system, where the metering system decides, should we go a little bit leaner or a little bit richer? But once it's set, it's going to give it what it wants. So
Is that
all right.
done mechanically, or is it electronically somehow?
0 batteries. It's all mechanical.
Okay.
Is that air metering force?
Air metering. Yes, it is force. Thank you. Air metering force. Air metering force. All right. So I want to switch off to a clean notepad and make a drawing, but I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to finish this up and get all of your
I'm cut up.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. She was quick with that one. Wasn't about you, Janet. Not everything's about you.
Okay. Whatever.
It's really more about K2 in there. Let me see. Do we even have Kevin today? He's being very quiet.
He might be here.
We are missing somebody. Who are we missing today?
We're missing 3 people.
3. I got 31. What's our normal count?
34.
34.
Wow.
I thought it was 32.
Well, I got Harry. I know that.
Kevin's not here.
Who? Kevin's gone.
Well, he was here and then I saw him like leave. It says Kevin left and then, I don't know, maybe you locked him out. I don't know.
I didn't hit that button.
Yeah, he was here.
I'll message him on Discord.
Shigun. I got Shigun on here. Yep. Well, actually, I should have you say yes. That way I know you're here. So everybody get prepared to hit your mic. So I just heard Harry. So Shigun, you here? Going once, going twice.
Figure. There he is.
I'm here.
I'm here.
Okay.
He wrote a message.
Okay, message works. Jace, I think I even see you on here
Yep,
somewhere.
I'm here.
Yep, got him. Richard.
Here.
Okay. Zach, got him. Christian.
Here.
Julian.
Here. Here. Here.
Okay, got you, Julian. Steven.
Here.
Scott.
Right here.
Yeah. Alex.
No, Alex.
No Alex. All right. August. I can see August in the corner. Is that Scotch or iced tea, Alex? Or August? You say glass of wine. Eric. I think I see Eric somewhere. There
That's
he is.
iced tea
Yeah.
with no ice.
All right. PK. I know I heard PK earlier. PK, where are you?
Here. He
There,
texted
I
here.
see you. All right, thanks. Pumpkin or Duncan? Got it. Devin?
I'm here.
Okay. Daniel Miller? I see you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Heath, gotcha. Daniel?
Yes, I'm here.
I know, all I got to do is not record. I'll hear from Robbie Reiner.
Robbie's here.
Robbie, there you are. Kevin, so Kevin left, huh? Left the building.
Yeah. Well, he was there earlier.
I got MJ. I got Janet. I've heard Mark answer a couple questions.
Present.
Present. I think I saw Scott on here. There's Scott. Matthew.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you. Dominic. I can see Dominic's square, but I don't hear Dominic. All right, Dominic. I'm gonna say you're not here. Abby.
I'm here.
All right. Nick. Nick. I see
I'm here.
Nick. I see Nick. Hector, I've heard Hector, and I see Charlie.
Here.
All right, so I'm missing Alex, Kevin, and Doc. That's who we're missing. Well, now we know. Okay. And that gave everybody a chance to get caught up. We'll bring this over here. All right, we're kind of getting in the middle of this thing so I can write some stuff. All right, where to begin? Where to begin? Okay, so to design, if we were going to design a pressure carburetor, and we're going to build a very simple one, we're going to learn how a very simple one works before we add any sort of complexity, because just like anything else, we can start adding automatic mixture controls, we can add accelerator pumps, we can add all sorts of things. But first, we're going to build a very simple one. And so if I want to build a very simple one, I want some straight lines over here, and we'll let this be my intake. So I've got air is going to be flow through. I'll make this an updraft. So air is going to come this way through my carburetor. All right, I'm just going to make a lot of blue arrows because I'm actually good at blue arrows.
So air will be blue?
Air is blue for now. We'll see how I feel about that later. Okay, well, just like a regular carburetor, we have to have some way of sensing the air pressure. And so I'm going to make a Venturi in here. So here I have a Venturi. And I want a throttle valve. So I have to be able to control the engine, the speed of the engine. So I'll put a throttle valve in here. Of course, it's going to go all the way from side to side. So there we go. We've got a Venturi and we've got a throttle valve. Well, so far, so good, right? Nothing to freak out about. And we're going to have a discharge nozzle. So we'll put the discharge nozzle up here. And let's see. There we go. Got our discharge nozzle. All right. Everything looks cool so far?
I think so.
Haven't lost anybody yet.
Makes sense.
Not yet.
No.
Okay.
No, not yet.
All right. So unlike the carburetor where I can just build one system and go, hey, let's try that. No, let's build another one. We kind of need to build at least a fair amount of it to begin with before the thing even starts to work. So with the regular flow carburetor, we put the discharge nozzle down in here, and the greater the suction was going from the air going through the Venturi because of Bernoulli's principle, so the more airflow we had going through here, the more suction that we would get in this area, and that would draw the fuel out of the nozzle. Well, now the nozzle's way up here, past the Venturi and past the throttle valve. So we've got to create a system that's going to then tell how much fuel to come out of here. So the first thing I talked about was we're going to talk about the air metering force. But I think before we get into the air metering force, since it's pretty much break time, I will give you guys a break and see you in 10 minutes.
Bye. Okay. Thank you.